Cooper Rush is thriving. Bailey Zappi is thriving. Andy Dalton. What do you make of backups thriving? What do you make of it?
Well, we're seeing the importance of having a good one. And we saw it a few years ago when Drew Brees got hurt and Teddy Bridgewater went in and went 5-0 in New Orleans to help them hold on to the seed. I think they were number 1 seed at the time. But I think this conversation, and I've never met Bailey Zappi. I've never met Cooper Rush. I don't train them, never been around them. Big fan of what they're doing, particularly Cooper. But I think it's actually less about those two guys, and it's more about Colin. This hopper of young quarterback talent is full. And when you're Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky or Cooper Rush from Central Michigan, and you've been passed over in the recruiting period, but you had to kind of ball out to get your chance in college. And then you go to a school and nobody cares about football at Central Michigan or at Western Kentucky. Well, then you got to make them relevant, right? And you got to win. And so by the time they get to the league, it really comes down to one thing. As long as the lights aren't too bright, and as long as Cooper Rush, and something you talk about a lot, can handle the star on the helmet and what it means to be a Cowboys quarterback, then if they can pass that threshold, these are guys that have proven that they can manufacture offense, they can find completions, they can take care of the football. And so I think we're going to continue to see more good young backups come in and surprise us.
So Mahomes, to me, Mahomes and Allen are the two best quarterbacks in the game. And a lot of times, it's like basketball. You come into the league, you're a star, Anthony Edwards, Minnesota. People figure out what you can do and can't. They try to stop the can. And then do you have a second gear? So Mahomes has established himself as an all-time talent. I would imagine now it's details, it's nuance. What is he doing now without Tyreek Hill? What is he doing now that you see that is the dimension that is now added to his game as everybody plays chess with him and tries to take stuff away?
Well, it's the evolution of him becoming a distributor of the football. Colin, when I was younger, I don't follow the NBA today, but when I was little, Allen Iverson was my favorite player. My brother Carson and I, Christmas rolled around, we wanted the AIs, right? And when you're little and you don't know basketball and you don't understand the game, you fall in love with somebody who can cross somebody over and hit fadeaway jumpers and who's little and all that, and he could score. And, I've seen him go for 50, right? And so Patrick coming into the league, he's an MVP. He goes to a Super Bowl. He wins a Super Bowl. And he makes these no-look passes and these unbelievable plays. And so we've gotten used and numb to some extent of these incredible plays. But what we're seeing right now is him transition from being an Allen Iverson-type scorer to a Steve Nash-type distributor. And just look at the last game when Travis Kelce had 4 touchdowns the other day. He had a 1-yard touchdown. He had a 2-yard touchdown. He had a 4-yard touchdown.
Right.
He had an 8-yard touchdown. I mean, what great point guards do, great passers, great distributors of the basketball, they pass the ball to somebody on their team who has an uncontested high percentage shot, right? That's what the Spurs did forever, right? The amount of layups that Tim Duncan made over the 29 years he played in San Antonio, right? And I think what we're seeing with Pat and the evolution of the offense and Kelce and the pieces around him, Juju is going to be a bigger piece as the season goes on, is people who understand the game and they can manufacture high percentage, uncontested, meaning not contested catches. And we're seeing the evolution of that, but he's still going to make 3 to 5 plays a game where you go, oh my God, how did he do that?
Now, where does Josh Allen's game go from here? I have concerns that like Cam and Big Ben, it looks great now, and then in about 4 years after all those shots, he's not the same player, right? Like you've worked with him, where does he go from here?
Well, anytime you get a quarterback who likes to run and honestly likes contact, I think it comes down to maturity more than a skill set. Look, the first 2 years in Josh's career in the NFL, the amount of times he rolled right and tried to make a play, he threw a lot of incredible balls that were crazy plays. He threw a lot of picks. But the amount of times that he got pushed out of bounds and landed full speed on his right shoulder, and it was a conversation, right, as any coaching staff would have with their quarterback, we haven't seen that. He's not careless with his body like he is. He's going to take shots, for sure. But he's not nearly taking the shots that he was taking a few years ago. And why? Because he's becoming a more mature runner. He sees the whole picture. He sees the Super Bowl. And, last year at the end of the season, I think it was a 4 or 5 week run where Josh Allen didn't get touched in the pocket. Right? Now, part of that's O-line play. Part of that's play calling, getting rid of it. But I've just seen a maturation with Josh. I don't know that he's gotten faster. I don't know that he's gotten quicker. What we're seeing is more effective runs and less ineffective runs where it also end with a collision. And that the evolution of his game, that's where I see it as a runner, a smarter runner who's getting the yardage that's needed when it's needed, but not carelessly throwing his body away around like he did, when he was 21.
So I have a discussion every week on a podcast with Joe Burrow, and we talk about this the last couple of weeks, how it's the Mahomes thing where the league has now said, okay, he beats us over the top. We're going to take that away. And he threw a pick last week against Baltimore, not a great pick. Where is he at right now? How does he get that thing moving? Because that offense feels a little uneven in Cincinnati now.
Yeah, I was thrown for a loop. I mean, for Baltimore to come out and play nothing but zone coverage, and I've watched it. I watched it live like you, and then I watched the coach's tape and spent a couple hours to go through the game. But I think a couple of things. This is still a young nucleus of talent, and I know last year was meteoric success at the end of the year going to a Super Bowl, and there was a couple of games that versus Baltimore, I think he threw for 900 and something yards in 2 games. But this is still a young nucleus of talent that's still learning how to attack different coverages. So moving forward, the next time that they play against a team who switches their game plan and goes from man to zone and tries different things, they're going to have this Baltimore game to draw on. And that's what a young nucleus doesn't have, that a nucleus like Kansas City does have, where Pat's been working with that coordinator for a few years now. He's played in a lot more games with Travis Kelce than Joe has with Jamar Chase at the NFL level or T. Higgins at the NFL level. And so it's still early with this young nucleus of talent. And on top of that, you talk to Joe, and I mean, he's not an excuse guy. He never has been, never will be. And most of the top guys aren't. But when you have your appendix taken out and they cut you up and they sew you back together, some things take a second. And so he might look great and play at a high level, but any of these injuries take a little while. And I just think we're seeing Cincinnati kind of start the way they did last year. And we saw Tom Brady in New England kind of start like this a lot, right? Where they were 1-3 or 2-2 and then got hot. So I see Cincinnati connecting these pieces back together. Joe's best ball is ahead of him very soon. And these guys are going to be in it at the end. There's just no way. I don't care who else they lose to in the next month. They're just going to be in it at the end. So
there's a really, it's the best college football weekend I can remember. You get one of these maybe a year, maybe 2. So one of the interesting games is Tennessee is hosting Bama. Now, Bama's won that game, I don't even know how many years straight, 10, 12 straight years. But Tennessee, I watched Tennessee last week, and they have got a guy at quarterback who is all that. Hendon Hooker. So do you know him? Have you seen him? What do you see? What do you like? Because to me, the way to beat Bama, you know this, Jordan, has been great quarterback play. The Johnny Manziels, that level of quarterback where it kind of takes the game over. What do I know about this kid for the Volunteers?
Well, the other way to beat Bama is don't turn it over. Don't give them a short field. Don't let them win the game, the field management side of things. This guy doesn't turn it over. Colin, he turns 25 here, I think this week or next week. In fact, when he plays Georgia in 2 weeks, both quarterbacks will be 25, him and Stetson. So that COVID year changed everything in terms of the average age per college quarterback. So the maturity is there. But, I mean, you said it. For Tennessee fans who have unrealistic expectations since I've been paying attention to college football, right? I mean, ever since T. Martin went there, they think they should win the title every year. But this is the first time, and it's at Tennessee, this is the first time where Tennessee fans are showing up to this game thinking they should win.
Yeah.
Right? They're not celebrating a 7-point spread. They're sitting here going, Bryce Young's coming off of a shoulder injury. We're not going to really know the state of his shoulder leading up to this game. But they feel like with Bryce Young, they can win. And so this environment, I think, is going to be one of the most hostile environments we've seen in college football. It won't show up on the TV copy. You won't be able to feel it. But this stadium holds 110. But I don't think since Nick Saban's been at Bama, I don't think they've had 110,000 people in there that feel like they're the better team and should win. And with this quarterback who doesn't turn it over, these wideouts who can stretch the field, and this defense who's full of SEC players who can get after the quarterback, I actually like Tennessee in this matchup, and I think we're going to see the emergence of Hendon Hooker start to get into the conversation of being one of the top picks in this upcoming draft.
By the way, before the season, I said I think USC is going to be like 8-4, 9-3, and you said Caleb Williams is going to solve a lot of problems. Boy, he is something, is he not? You were right.
Yeah, and have you spent any time with him? Have you talked to him?
I've heard he's incredibly mature, bright kid.
He's off the charts. I mean, he's the next Mahomes. in this. And
wow.
There's a chance that at the end of this year, this college football season, that we have a couple of quarterbacks, Will Levis, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. We have a couple of quarterbacks selected at the top of this draft, maybe 1, 2, and 3, like 2 years ago, right? There's also a really good chance that we have that happen. And the general consensus is that the best young player is actually not in this draft. And it's SC and it's Pac-12, so we're not going to see him against the competition. He won't get that respect this year because of the strength of schedule if they remain undefeated until they're in the playoffs. And so I just think this is, in a time where we have a lot of bright young stars, it's not just his physical ability, it's the maturity. If you look at Mahomes didn't deal with being an NFL franchise quarterback until his second year in the league. This kid was the MVP of the Elite 11. He was the number 1 recruit in the country. He came off the bench in a historic Red River shootout game last year as a true freshman, seeding Spencer Rattler, who everyone had as the number 1 pick in the mock drafts and the Heisman Trophy. He took him out. Then he goes to SC. So he's been through and experienced a lot of what NFL franchise quarterbacks experience, and he's experienced at a young age, and he's undefeated at handling that. And so with him and the guidance and leadership of Lincoln Riley and the brand that is SC and the brand that SC is about to become again, this guy's poised to have a lot of success, whatever comes his way.
All right, 20, 30 seconds here. Kyle Allen and you are doing something called The Room. What is it?
Well, I just think the most fascinating conversation in sports is around the quarterback position. Every show is built around it. I've trained Kyle since he was 16, and he plays for the Houston Texans, and we're bringing on the biggest guests every week, and we're just inviting people into that conversation. We've had Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Kenny Pickett. We've got a lot of the biggest names scheduled for the rest of the season in college and pro. We're inviting people into to that quarterback conversation.
So good to see you. Jordan Palmer. He told me, he said, just watch Caleb Williams. He's going to solve a lot of issues, and he has. Jordan, it's great to see you as always. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.